In 1848, the British Admiralty received a message that stopped them cold. 2 ships, trapped in ice, all hands presumed dead. But that message didn't come from the Arctic. It came from an Inuit hunter, relayed through traders and whispers across thousands of miles of frozen wilderness. The HMS Erebus and HMS Terror, Britain's most advanced polar vessels, had simply ceased to exist. No distress signal, no wreckage washing ashore, no survivors walking out, just silence. And Britain, the world's dominant naval power, had to make a choice: send rescue expeditions costing thousands of pounds, or accept that 129 men, including their commander, were gone. Let's rewind to 1845. Sir John Franklin was 59 years old, a veteran of Arctic expeditions, and he was about to stake his legacy and his life on one final push to the top of the world. The Northwest Passage was the prize. A navigable route through the Canadian Arctic connecting Europe to Asia would reshape global trade, and Britain wanted the credit. Franklin commanded HMS Erebus. His second officer, Francis Crozier, captained HMS Terror. Together they carried 129 men, sailors, marines, engineers, a surgeon, even a photographer. They packed 3 years of food, steam engines, reinforced hulls, and equipment that represented the cutting edge of 1840s naval technology. On May 19th, they sailed from England with absolute confidence. By 1846, they'd reached the Canadian Arctic. Progress was methodical but steady. They found open water where they expected ice, and Franklin made a decision that, in hindsight, cost him everything. He pressed south into unexplored channels instead of waiting for summer. It was a calculated gamble, but the Arctic doesn't reward gambles. By September 1846, pack ice closed in from all sides. The ships became locked, completely immobilized. Franklin and his men prepared for a long wait. They had supplies. They had discipline. They had experience. What they didn't have was any way to know that the ice wouldn't release them. Not in months, not in years. Winter in the Arctic isn't just cold, it's psychological torture. Temperatures dropped to -40 degrees. Darkness lasted months. Food, even rationed carefully, began to run low. Scurvy appeared. Tuberculosis spread. Franklin himself died in June 1847, likely from a combination of illness and the crushing weight of knowing his expedition was failing. Command passed to Francis Crozier. In April 1848, with the ship still trapped and food running dangerously low, Crozier made the only decision left to him: abandon ship. He ordered the crews to march south across the ice toward a Hudson's Bay Company outpost 250 miles away. About 105 men left the ships on foot. They had sleds, some supplies, and desperation. None of them made it. The march became a nightmare. Scurvy victims collapsed. Exhaustion set in. Some men, desperate and starving, turned to cannibalism, a fact that emerged decades later from Inuit testimony and archaeological evidence. The bodies of the officers, including Crozier, were never found. The ships, locked in ice, drifted for years before eventually sinking. For decades, the Franklin expedition remained a mystery wrapped in Arctic fog. Search parties found scattered bones, broken sleds, and the testimony of Inuit hunters who'd encountered dying men. But the ships themselves, Erebus and Terror, vanished into legend. Then, in 2014, researchers found HMS Erebus in the Canadian Arctic, preserved in the ice like a time capsule. In 2016, HMS Terror was discovered nearby. Both ships had sunk, but the cold, airless water had kept them intact, along with evidence that rewrote parts of the story. Inside the Erebus, divers found personal items: buttons, shoes, dishes, a leather shoe belonging to a crew member. These weren't artifacts. They were echoes of 129 individual human beings who made the same choice Franklin made. They believed in the mission enough to walk into the Arctic knowing they might not walk out. What happened to Franklin's men wasn't a mystery of incompetence or cowardice. It was a collision between human ambition and an environment that doesn't negotiate. Franklin made the best decisions he could with the information he had. So did Crozier. So did the men who marched across the ice. The Arctic simply won. Today, the Franklin expedition stands as one of history's most powerful reminders. Even the best technology, the best planning, and the best intentions can fail when you're gambling against nature. The cost was 129 lives. The payoff was zero. And yet the ships finally came home. Subscribe for more stories of expeditions that vanished, treasures lost to time, and the mysteries that still haunt us. There's a new unsolved case waiting every week. Subscribe for more stories of expeditions that vanished, treasures lost to time, and the mysteries that still haunt us. There's a new unsolved case waiting every week.